speaking of sounding off, you guys have been blowing us up on YouTube with comments, and so we just want to get it all out of the way and address everything you guys have had to say over the last week or so. So Pete, take it away.
Cool. So for starters, we've got one from our buddy, Dr. Judgment. So he writes in on episode 46, is the comic book world turning on Marvel? What amazes me is that Marvel would think we were for them. No, we are for good comics. The brand name of the company does not matter. The writers do not matter as long as they show talent. The artists don't matter as long as they show talent. Only one thing matters, making a good comic book. Once you have that, fans will buy the comic book. It's that simple.
I appreciate the sentiment of what you're saying, but you're not right. Because unfortunately, it's proven that that's not the case. If we divorce ourselves from talking about Marvel for a moment, I mean, there are plenty of other publishers that put out great content that don't have the audience that Marvel or DC does, and it's simply because they're not as big. They don't have the publishing power. They don't have the machine behind them. They don't have 70 years of characters and people knowing of those characters to fall back on.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you take a look at, like, the big two, a book that was critically acclaimed that we all enjoyed, Omega Men, right? And that got canceled because it didn't have enough sales, and that did have a big-name creator behind. I guess Tom King wasn't necessarily, like, a big-name creator, but he was, like, Vision had already come out. Like, he was definitely, like...
No, it was before that.
No. Yep.
Really? I thought it was...
We read it when Vision had come out. But it was already...
that's what I'm thinking of. That's what I'm thinking of. Okay. So when did that come out? In 2013 then?
14, 13?
Whatever. It's irrelevant. Either way, that was a book that had a lot of positive critical buzz and failed to find an audience, you know? And that happens all the time. Even at a company like Marvel or DC where they do have the ability to market a book properly and push it and have a budget. So yeah, it's definitely not that simple.
It's also not true in any medium. There's no form of entertainment in which that statement is true. The individual, the organization delivering the content matters. In some cases, almost more than the content itself. That's why some of the greatest pop stars ever have ghostwriters who cannot be, actual on-stage performing artists because maybe they're not attractive or they don't have that level of charisma or whatever it is that makes them not marketable in the eyes of the people who market people. That's why that's that way, right?
Yeah. I would argue, and I don't want to like necessarily get into the conversation because this isn't VGP, but I would say that I think video games are probably the only medium where that doesn't hold true. Just because of like how we've seen the explosion of the indie scene over the last couple of years. That is like one medium where most of the time like the cream does kind of rise to the top. There aren't a lot of like really phenomenal games that are like languishing because they can't find an audience because they're better distribution platforms for people to discover new things. Like Steam is a really, really easy way for you to explore what's new and hot, whereas like that's definitely not as easy in comics. And we talk about that all the time. There's definitely a visibility problem for new books.
Yeah, I would say that's probably accurate. That's probably a rare exception.
Because, yeah, I mean, you could put out a game made by two people that is like a bestseller. Like that happens all the time, every year at this point. So, I'm with you on this one, Sean, where like I appreciate the sentiment. And I wish it were that simple. But I think there are other issues that push back against the industry or from the industry that I think make that not exactly hold true.
But even if you look at Marvel, like Marvel is publishing really good comics and there's still like this guy. There's still this narrative that the comics aren't good. It's just not a fact. It's not. But the narrative is such. And so people believe that. But it's not true.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually got in conversation with this about this with the owner of my local comic book store the other day, where I went to go pick up my books, and we were joking about Marvel, and he was saying like, the sales issue right now is like it's all cyclical. It's like it really has nothing to do with the actual quality of the books. It's that people have an axe to grind with Marvel. And he's like, and it's like 2-3 years ago, it was DC. And it's like we've been saying the same thing, right? Like when we all entered the industry as like journalists, that was kind of the atmosphere at that time, was that DC was on a downturn and Marvel was doing everything right and could do nothing wrong. So I really do think that a big part of this has to do with like optics of we perceive Marvel as being shitty right now. So we're more comfortable adopting that narrative about anything. Right? Like, whenever it's like, oh, there's this bad headline. Oh, yeah, it's because Marvel's in a bad spot right now. It's like, are they, though? Like, is everything they're putting out bad? From the people that actually read the books, it doesn't seem that way. So,
yeah, it's like what you guys have been saying. It's a marketing ploy, essentially, to help, like, what's been going on with DC specifically, the whole thing with Rebirth, and then the continuation of bringing in the Watchmen universe. Like these are headlines and are being pushed in a certain way with a certain narrative to sort of attract and bring in people, regardless of whether or not there is quality content. There is, the stories have been great, but it's also the way that they're positioning the material that they have to deliver. It ultimately it sort of comes down to that, unfortunately. And if you have great content, like that's a plus, but it also comes down to the way that a large company will be like, this is the product we're trying to push, and this is what we're trying to do to get people to come to the stores and pick it up.
Kale, did you want to speak on this before we move on?
No, I agree with everything we've said. So cool. I think for once, this is pretty good commentary. I might just listen to this podcast, guys.
Thank you.
So thanks for writing in, Dr. Judgment. We'll talk to you next time. All right, so Harris, over on our buddy Harris, writes into the show pretty regularly, wrote in on episode 67, which was huge Bendis / DC news and the importance of the Black Panther film. So on the topic of the pop-up imprint, he wrote in and said, pop-up imprint, I would pick Brian Azzarello. The revival, FTR. Oh, I mean FTRR. You get it?
No,
I don't get that.
I do.
Is that
it's a wrestling thing.
Okay, that's what I figured. So here's my question for you guys. With a rumored Reign of the Supermen to be released in 2019, is it possible for it to end with the destruction of Coast City, setting up a 0-hour story for the Green Lantern Corps movie?
Can I answer this one?
Yeah, or Marco. Yeah, sure.
Marco has no idea.
Yeah. Coast City, Aquaman will be there to protect them.
Wow.
Nope. Swing and a miss.
Okay, I tried.
It's a valiant effort. I do appreciate the connection, but
not even close, baby.
You literally only said Aquaman because the word coast was there.
Yeah. I don't really know.
And if you look, like, in the question, he lists 2 different DC superheroes, neither of which are Aquaman.
But he said Coast City, so I just assumed.
Some clue to you that maybe one of them hangs out at Coast City, and you know where Superman's from, so...
Metro.
It's Marco. He might not.
Okay, buddy. He tried.
A+.
So Brian Azzarello for a pop-up imprint, I actually think that's a super cool idea.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, good pick.
He's got some good stuff and good ideas, and I'd love to see what he would bring to that. FTR stands for F the Revival. The Revival is a wrestling tag team, and they're made fun of regularly by an indie wrestler named Cody Rhodes. And FTRR is F, I don't know why the T's there, but F Roman Reigns, a WWE superstar. So I get it, but I don't endorse those messages here.
See, when he said FTR, I thought he was like saying "fuck the revival." So it's like, let's not revive them.
I didn't. And then I haven't heard the rumor of Reign of the Supermen film being released.
Yeah, me neither.
That's what I was going to ask. I thought that's what Man of Steel was. Like, I didn't.
Yeah, I haven't heard that either.
I haven't heard that rumor, but I don't think that. I don't even, if they even made that movie, which if they were, by now we would have seen some promotional material or something, because 2019 is a year away. We would know, it would be on the docket somewhere. and we haven't heard it. But if that were the case, I still don't think they'd be setting up a 0-hour story, because Green Lantern Corps is going to be very much about reintroducing Green Lantern to audiences who thought the first one sucked or didn't see it. And that would be a lot of, stuff to have to get into a movie that's supposed to be introducing not only Hal Jordan or whoever, but then Jon Stewart, then Kilowog, and the whole core. I don't think they're just going to jump into something so massive.
Yeah, I feel like this could have worked if they had, like, if the first Green Lantern movie was a success and we'd been building since then, like, that would be okay a couple films down the road. But like you said, I feel like they're going to be focused on selling us on the Green Lantern, not destroying his city in the first movie, Yeah.
I always thought that the Emerald Dawn series of events, Hal Jordan getting the ring, and then Hal Jordan turning, and then Kyle Rayner getting the ring and restoring hope and the power battery and Oa and everything. I always thought they'd make a really solid Green Lantern trilogy.
It's like, that would be so cool too, because they would never do this because that's not how Hollywood works, but having a trilogy of films with a hero and then seeing that hero fall and turn evil would be so emotional. That would be so cool.
The problem would be Hollywood not blowing their load before the end of the first movie.
Right. Yeah, it's I would want 2 solid movies about, Green Lantern, then the third one is when he turns to Parallax, and then we get the new Green Lantern, and then that same actor stays on to play the villain. That would be really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel like that is so integral to Hal Jordan's character in the DC universe that I would honestly be surprised if we didn't get something like that.
Do you think it is anymore?
Well, not now, but how he got to where he's at. When I started reading comic books, I remember that he wasn't trusted by people because of what happened, and that's always stuck with me. And then when Jeff Johns rebooted him and brought him back and all that stuff, that was so important to his story. I guess you could tell his story without that, but to me, from a comics perspective, I feel like you gotta have that.
Yeah. So I mean, do I think this is going to happen now or soon? No. Would I like to see it at some point if they pull off a good Green Lantern movie or trilogy? Fuck yeah. I think that would be so
that'd be cool.
Definitely.
So yeah, definitely good idea, Harris. So we got another one from Harris on episode 68, which was last week's show, the future of the Star Wars universe or film universe. So he wrote in and said, Michael Bay may be an improvement, but please don't, DC. If they asked me to chop off my right thumb to stop it from happening, I would do it with no reservations. Did they not think to get Tim Miller instead? He's not doing Deadpool, so he's free to pick up Lobo with his production studio. I'm amped for that Power Ranger story that I will go as far to say that I would not wait for the trade and pick up the issues. The trailer sold me 20 times over. Cool. Yeah, I'm with you, man. Don't do Michael Bay, please.
Please do Michael Bay.
No, please stop giving Michael Bay work, everyone. We gotta stop this.
Also, Tim Miller's definitely not free. He's working. Well, we're going to talk a little bit later about what he's working on, but he's working on something with Brian Bendis, a secret project.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so, yeah, Tim Miller's not available for.
He's not available.
So,
I mean, hey, they push Lobo back. Do it after he's done with whatever he's doing now.
Who's doing Deadpool 2?
Oh gosh, I know it's not Tim Miller because I remember that there was a falling out between him and Ryan Reynolds, but I can't. Sorry,
David Leitch.
Oh, okay, yeah.
What else has he done? I know he's done some other notable stuff.
Oh, Atomic Blonde, and he directed some scenes in John Wick.
John Wick, yeah, he's one of the two John Wick guys. Yeah,
there you go.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then as far as Power Rangers, I'm there with you.
Yeah, right? Seems like you guys are all in for that ride, so cool. All right, and then the last one is from James McMahon, another regular writer for the to the show, who wrote in on the same episode 68, and says, Venom trailer was shit. Generic crap with Tom Hardy. Like, not just they don't, quote, they didn't, sorry. Like, not just they don't give anything away, like, they didn't get anyone hyped either. Deadpool 2 trailer was very good. Told us very little, just enough action and humor to get you hype. I am fairly hyped for that. Yeah, I'm with you, man.
James, what language?
Not
Shame
a fan.
on you.
Not a fan of that Venom trailer. Deadpool's trailer was a good time.
I think it's hard to argue that the Venom trailer was good.
You got a lot of people. You haven't been on the internet recently.
I understand the argument of, hey, you know, we held back, we kept stuff close to the vest, and I actually think that's perfectly fine. But nothing happens. It's just Tom Hardy kind of like freaking out. You could put him in several concepts for films, and you could take this trailer and it could be about that. Like Tom Hardy,
it's a Tom Hardy movie. Yeah,
I would love to just come up with several movies several things this movie could be about that have nothing to do with Venom at all.
Sean, can we do that as a game next week, please? Please, that would be so funny. We all come prepared with a couple pitches of what this movie could be about,
and that's not a good sign. So,
or even better, we'll go in, right? I'll edit it out. I'll go edit out the one scene with the goop in the jar, and then the Venom thing at the end, and we'll show it to a bunch of adults and be like, "What do you think this movie's about?"
Yeah. You can show it to anybody. They're not gonna, if they haven't already seen the trailer, they're not gonna know what it is.
Tom Hardy, a fucking spy that has cancer?
Well, this is Mission Impossible, isn't it?
I didn't know Tom Hardy was in MI8.
Right. So thanks a lot to you guys for writing in. We appreciate it. And of course, you guys that are listening now, if you haven't ever hit us up, you can do so in all the aforementioned ways. These people chose to hit us up on YouTube, which is awesome. But of course, you can also write to us at thecomicspals@gmail.com. So however you choose to get to us, we will respond to you. So let's talk.